Oh, I've got a special one for you today. Corporate IT is dead. It sounds alarmist and clickbaity, but the current crisis has us all working from home. And that is really only going to accelerate the death of the traditional, information technology role. Don't believe me? Well, look how much success Apple has had with the iPad. The iPad is basically an appliance. It's so locked down, you can't do anything with it. I mean, you can install apps, but they're walled garden apps. If you're a developer, you can enroll and get 17 different kinds of cryptographic keys and certificates, and then maybe you can install custom software. But if you want to deploy that custom software to a bunch of iPads, well, you're limited to 100 as a developer, 100 that you specifically enroll by hardware ID. The hardware ID thing is going to be a recurring pattern in this video a little bit. And so you're basically taking ownership of those devices, not really, I mean, sort of, kind of, through that hardware ID. And if you want to do more than that, then you can enroll your company in like an enterprise deployment thing and kind of have a walled garden. But it's a chore to install arbitrary applications on an iPad. And yet, it's been an incredibly successful product. No one would argue that it's not amazing in terms of market penetration and how much people are willing to pay for the hardware, given the profit margins and the lack of competition to really, sort of deal with it. For those of you that work in IT, you set up machines to be as idiot-proof as possible. You decide how Windows is, you take away administrator rights, maybe, for Mac or Linux, on that side of it, there are analogs for taking those steps with the machine, but, as the administrator or the lead IT or the lead person, you are making those decisions and locking the machine down as much as possible and thinking to yourself, it's like, man, even a complete idiot would be able to use this machine. And then they go and build a better idiot. Somebody does something to the machine. I mean, the calls that your help desk gets is like, all right, what did these users do? They threw it down a flight of stairs. Oh, that's why it's acting weird. I mean, if you work in IT, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So, have you tried turning it off and on again? Well, inside the network, some people have set up tools so that, if it is more complicated where turning it off and back on doesn't fix it, they just re-image the machine. It's like, okay, you know what? We're just going to re-image your machine. Let's not even bother trying to figure this out. Just reboot and press, F12 to boot from the network or F11 or whatever. And it's like, yes, I really want to destroy my machine. It's like, oh, by the way, any information you've saved on your local machine, which you're not supposed to do according to corporate policy anyway, that's going to be removed. And then you have that, sort of user freak out because they're like, no, I have my coupon printer on here. No. And then the coupon printer is like the thing that's been causing the problems. Again, super easy. If they're inside the building, you can send that new Windows image to them at gigabit speeds, or you can SSH into their machine on Windows or Linux at this point, or Mac OS, and try to figure out what they did, troubleshoot the problem, do screen sharing. But really, if you're a small number of IT staff with a large number of users, you want that more appliance-like experience. And some businesses have adopted using an iPad basically as their primary machine for rank and file workers that just need email and data entry, like form entry, things like that. They're using devices like iPads and devices like iPads because it's idiot proof. It's like something's not working. Well, you can do the hard reset, and then because we've got this device enrollment certificate hoopla that we went through, then the device will re-enroll. You'll get your applications that'll work over Wi-Fi. Not a problem. Everything is basically automated. So it's already kind of happening, but it's just that that's coming to PCs. So let's talk about home users for a second. Now, think about a home computer. Somebody just buys, like a typical home computer. Somebody just buys a computer from Walmart. It might be a hand-me-down from corporate. These are very typically inexpensive machines. I think of it as a kind of nesting that occurs on these home machines. So users use the machines and they just sort of pile stuff on, and stuff's kind of wedged in there sideways. And, it's like, oh no, my recipe book, those go back to GeoCities. I can't lose those. And, of course, nothing is backed up and everything is everywhere. It is a literal rat's nest of insanity. So, again, anybody in the audience that has worked IT, I feel like they can commiserate with, like, they can hear the pain in my voice. You get sucked into helping family and friends and friends of friends and friends of family and family's family, and then like some family is like, no, he's really good at that. I'm going to, have him help you because you're skeptical about, that he could help you do that because it's a complicated problem. It's just weird like that. I don't know. There's weird, edge cases with the social contract. I don't know. I get roped into things kind of a lot. So, again, you look at somebody's computer and it's like, I really want to thread the needle on fixing this, because what we should do is just destroy this instance. Like, the reason that you can't have 64-bit Windows is because this machine started as Windows 3.1. And I'm actually kind of impressed that you were, it's a little bit ship of Theseus here, because you've upgraded your machine 17 times through Windows 95 and 98 and, all the way through Windows XP. And now we're on 32-bit Windows 10. And, there's a decade of nesting that has gone on here, and it's scary. It's like the guy that, nests on the X-Files. It's really, you don't want to mess with that, because then, it's like, okay, I fixed your printer, but from then on, something with the coupon, well, I don't want to say the coupon printer because, that involves printing, but it's like, I fixed your coupon printer, Battle Chess. The sound in Battle Chess doesn't work, and that's obviously your fault, and it's obviously related. It's like, okay, I don't know, that's not how that works, but okay. So you get into a situation where on that home machine, if you really want to fix it correctly, it's going to be a black hole of time. And if you've followed me so far working on this, your time is valuable. I mean, a plumber that is going to come and fix a leak for you is going to charge $75 an hour. People that work in IT and that have kept up with me so far probably will charge at least $75 an hour, depending on where you are. It's going to be $100, $150, $200 an hour for higher end IT and programming services is not out of the question. And you get into a situation where the computer costs $500, but they've been doing so much nesting on this computer and everything is just so that they don't want to spend more than like $100 of time. So it's like, what can you do in an hour? And it's like, well, it might take me over an hour to run through all of the possible things that could be wrong, and it's going to definitely take more than an hour for me to try to reinstall and copy your stuff. And so you get this time paradox where they don't understand that they obviously don't want anything to change, but they're also not willing to spend more than $100 or 20%, let's say, of the cost of the hardware on recovering it to another situation. What they don't realize is that the more valuable stuff on the machine is literally the software and the data that they put on it more than the hardware. The hardware is worthless. What has value is that they know where everything is, I guess, and that they don't have to fish out their data, and they haven't had to maintain a backup, and they haven't done this, that, and the other, and everything is just kind of there. So the value is in preserving that. But, even just buying, in their mind, it's like, I could just go buy a whole other computer and that would be less than the time it would take to fix this, but it still doesn't, in their mind, that would solve the problem, but it doesn't actually solve the problem because there's no way to get, the data off of the machine. So it's just that nesting that people just don't realize. So you have a little bit of that on the corporate side, that corporate nesting, and it is nice to be able to blow away the machine and format it and go from there. And, with iPads, that type of nesting, Apple has been very good about keeping that separated from the stuff that actually runs on the iPad. Apple offers things like the iCloud backup services where your iCloud applications will be backed up to the cloud. Android is a dumpster fire. Every time I get a new Android phone or a new Android device, it's like I would like Google Play to just automatically set up all my applications and data on this device exactly the same way that it was on this other device. That has never worked right for me on Android. It's kind of sort of worked a little bit right with some applications. Mostly though, it has been a dumpster fire. Like, Google doesn't understand. Like, it's just a completely from the moon request that, hey, I've gotten a new Android device. I would like my new Android device to start out being very similar to the old Android device. And I know software is going to change, but I'd like to, do the migration thing, tap it, and just have all my stuff set up. And it has improved, but it's still mostly a dumpster fire, and it mostly doesn't work. And it mostly doesn't, like, oh, your Pixel Dungeon saves? Yeah, don't know about those. They're just, because there is kind of a standard way of storing that. It just doesn't work. So on the Windows side, you can do that. And in the enterprise, you can do that software imaging thing. And One of the pieces of software that you can use for that is called Intune. Another one is System Center Configuration Manager. And those are all well and good, but they're inaccessible for most people because they're fabulously expensive and needlessly complicated, like everything. But Microsoft 365 offers a new thing called Autopilot. We're actually using Autopilot at level 1 for some of our Windows benchmarking. Check it out. So this is me. This is a completely out-of-the-box Windows 10 experience. I'm literally just signing in with a Microsoft account, logging in, yep, put in the password, put in the email address and the password, and it's like, okay, do you own the computer or does the organization own the computer? I'm saying the organization owns the computer. And then with that, it's going to enroll the hardware ID of this particular machine. And then look at that. Oh, it's like, oh, the installer is doing some different stuff. Yes, the Windows installer has connected to Microsoft and is pulling down my prescription for how I want this machine configured. So when you have corporate users, like my machine broke, it's like, all right, great, go to the Microsoft store. It's like, why is there chocolate chip cookie remnants on the back of your Surface? It's like, I don't know. You do a hard machine reset, and then when Windows 10 pops up and says, hey, do you want to log in with a Microsoft account? You actually do, but instead of logging in with a Microsoft account, it's a corporate account. And that works just fine with the Windows 10 out-of-box experience since even before 1803. When you use Microsoft Autopilot, it's going to set up all the software and the security policies and literally everything with this machine. So that IT role, configuring the machine, doing the images, you can do it all in the cloud now. And it's built right into the E3 or E5 subscription with Microsoft 365. Although if you've already got licenses for Intune or SCCM and they're in the cloud, you can reuse those. But this is really awesome because it's a completely out-of-the-box experience. And this is where corporate IT is going. Now, once somebody sets this up, it's still possible to get malware and viruses and monitoring and all this kind of stuff. But depending on what your strategy is, you can chain Autopilot to those other services. So if you have, a corporate screen sharing program, or you have a corporate monitoring program where you forward the Windows event logs, which is something everybody should be doing. You've got to monitor your Windows event logs across your fleet. You can do it now over the internet. You don't have to have local infrastructure for deploying your applications and all of that. All of it can come from Azure, the cloud. It can come from something that's in your part of your corporate network, but that is available on the internet. So even though you have offices, people that are working in offices that are remote offices, or people that are working from home, as we are in the current crisis, Autopilot lets you configure the machine, lock it down. You can even take away administrator privileges. I mean, the way that I've been doing this for small businesses is there's not even an administrative account for the corporation, and BitLocker is force enabled. So because of the document retention policies, like the way that, like how you save your documents and all this kind of stuff, I'm not concerned if something bad happens to the networking and you can't sign in, then there's no way to elevate to an administrative privilege on this machine because there's no local administrator account, because that's a security issue. Or there's a problem with BitLocker at startup. Recovery keys is like, do we have key escrow? Nope. If it's that bad, blow it away. Just do the Windows reset, format it, go to the Microsoft store and get a new one. I don't care. It is too much of a security risk to maintain those BitLocker keys in escrow, and it's too much of a security risk to have a local administrator account, especially with a fixed password, because if you get a piece of malware that cracks that, an advanced persistent threat or something like that, then you will have a lot of problems with that. And so my recommendation in general is that you don't need those things. You can use Autopilot to set whole disk encryption and not have any recovery keys. So if the machine completely messes up, or your user using the machine, loses their password and it can't get on the network, both of those things at the same time, you just got to format it and reload. And if they had documents on there that were not stored in the proper place according to the requirements, or the documents had not synced, oh well, that's just part of the policy, because to do anything else is too much of a security risk in terms of malware being on the machine and that kind of thing. So this is how you can manage these things. And in a pandemic, the IT technicians never actually have to see or interact with it. It's like, oh, your machine's messed up, I'll just mail you a new one. Or you can go to the Microsoft store and buy a new one on the corporate account. They've got it all there for you. Or go down to Office Max, or even go to Walmart. You can pick up a machine at Walmart, sign in, and It will take care of all the licensing, the provisioning, and everything. The out-of-the-box experience, it's called OOBE, the out-of-the-box experience, is you just sign in with your corporate account, just like you would a Microsoft account. Nothing special, no imaging, nothing is needed. What does this mean for the IT industry? It means that once corporations figure this out, that IT technician, it's all going to be consolidated. There's going to be a guy in a mailroom somewhere that pops a machine open and is doing, we're not throwing these machines away, obviously. There's just one guy in a room somewhere that's just doing the service for all of that. And it's very, very efficient. But you also don't get to know the person, and they just sort of work out of the room, or the small team works out of the room. And those become very, very commodity employees with a very sort of narrow knowledge, which probably also means that those employees are able to service a lot more machines with a lot fewer people. But it also means for the corporation that a lot more employees can be serviced by a lower number of IT staff, which is maybe good for the bottom line. But of course, if you're working in IT, you're thinking, what does this mean for me? You probably should learn these automation tools, at least Autopilot and PowerShell on the Microsoft side. It would be good for you to know about Intune and SCCM, although those products are such a dump. They're much more complicated than they need to be. Autopilot is a step in the right direction. If you've got a legacy Active Directory, I'm going to say maybe you don't need to bring the legacy Active Directory to the cloud. You can just start a new one. It will be fine with Autopilot. I mean, really, you don't really need that. There are roles for security and event monitoring. So your end users are still going to install Coupon Printer everywhere, and it's going to be bad. So you need to be able to monitor that, take away their administrative privileges, but still have the ability for IT to do what IT needs to do from an administrative standpoint. So you give yourself a way in there somehow, but generally it's pretty locked down, and generally it's pretty good in terms of user experience and flexibility, and it really does tick all the boxes. Now you might be thinking, okay, this is client side, but I work on servers. What about server side? Well, I guess bad news for you too. Infrastructure as a service is sort of becoming in vogue. I mean, Azure usage was up something like 700-800%, maybe even more than that by the time this video comes out, because of the current situation. So instead of a technician in provisioning servers, all of that's going to you order them via web portal and virtual machines mostly right now. But there's this other thing that's going on called infrastructure as a service and bare metal provisioning. So there's like Liquid. I always talk about Liquid. I've got a bunch of their Liquid half-high, half-length SSDs. They're extremely high performance enterprise SSDs. But the thing that Liquid is doing is PCIe fabric switching. Like, you can have a whole rack of servers, and how the servers are connected together in terms of their PCI Express peripherals is controlled in software. So there's this huge PCIe fabric, and what Liquid does is like, okay, this server needs some GPUs, this server needs some high-end networking cards, this server needs this. They can control which thing is connected to what server in software. So when you have a Fortune 500 company that's doing a disaster recovery response, the same way that you provision a fleet of virtual machines in the cloud with something like Kubernetes, it works just the same with IPMI and physical infrastructure. So it's like, okay, we've got a bank of 12 servers we're not using yet. Let's spin them up, deploy this software image, do this thing, and they're good to go. And it's bare metal. Like, you've configured bare metal exactly the same way that you would a virtual machine, which covers all of everything that you would possibly need in the enterprise in terms of responding to a disaster scenario. Like, suddenly the entire workforce working from home, they might need virtual desktops, they might need more document space, they might need more whatever. And so again, those automations and all of that is becoming a commodity. Like, it is going to be up, like Dell is just going to give you, the Dell server that does that, and you're not going to be able to sort of pick and choose as many options as you used to, because some choices are made for you if you want that level of automation. And most companies are going to want that level of automation because they don't have the staff to support anything else. In a disaster recovery scenario, you've got your manifest file that defines what your infrastructure is, what you need to run the directory services, what you need to run SQL, what you need to run your line of business applications, what you need to run whatever. And all of that is controlled by script. So you hit a button in your DR site, and all of a sudden your AD directory servers start spinning up, your SQL servers start spinning up, all of your infrastructure starts being assembled by robots, basically, the scripts. That's what I mean when I say that. And then everything is online on the internet. You do a DNS update, and then all of a sudden everybody that's got all those automated machines out in the field can log in and start doing stuff. And this is what I mean by the death of IT. It's really, things are shifting, but your field service technician that's going to replace RAM and hard drives, not going to be able to do that. Those technicians, they're going to be doing security and monitoring and maybe some light, like tier 1 help desk, like, okay, let me walk you through because you forgot how to read this thing or you forgot how to do that thing. But even like network connectivity, some of you are laughing, was like, no, the internet is not good enough to be able to do this. Multipath TCP. Multipath TCP has snuck up on you. Multipath TCP is really cool because you can have a device that has multiple internet connections, and as long as the data can get there one way, it works really well. So the experimenting that I've done with Multipath TCP has been to build a little box, basically, that has multiple cellular connections and do a point-to-point link to a link, receptacle, basically, on the internet that will receive the traffic from the mobile device. So as you have a bus, say, that's touring the United States, and you got all these different providers, and you want to maintain a continuous video feed or continuous this, that, or the other feed, there are going to be times when one connection drops. Well, with Multipath TCP, you can have 3, 4, 5 cellular or RF or Wi-Fi connections on the router device on the bus, and with the multipath link, as long as that traffic can get out somehow, you're going to have a continuous link to a fixed point on the internet. And then from there, you can do your regular internet traffic, because not everywhere on the internet supports multipath TCP. Modern iPhones do multipath TCP. They can send traffic simultaneously via the cellular, radio, and Wi-Fi. And so multipath TCP is going to simulate a better internet experience than we currently have, but that should be good enough. Multipath TCP, if you've got a Surface type device with built-in cellular plus Wi-Fi, both are going at the same time, those next generation devices, the multipath setup should be good enough for VoIP, because between your home Wi-Fi, like your kids start downloading Roblox and then your VoIP quality goes down, well, the cellular connection would take over just for the VoIP traffic. And then bulk traffic, it doesn't matter as much. So we're actually closer to that, like realizing that reality than most people realize, and it'll probably be in modems like 2 generations from now on the Windows side, but it's already there in Apple devices because, yeah, reason. So anyway, this is Wendell. This is level 1. This is just me waxing poetic on the death of the IT industry. If you liked it, give it an update. If I'm, a rambly blowhard, the down dude thing works too. It's fine. I'm gonna hang out in the forums at Level 1 Techs, where we should have a lively debate on such things. I'm Wendell, this is Level 1, I'm signing out, and I'll see you in the forums.